What's going on, my dear friends? Today in this video, let's learn and master the Angular framework's latest version. So let's get started. Welcome back everyone. I am excited to share this completely updated Angular course designed specifically with beginners in mind. We'll be diving into the fundamentals, exploring the latest Angular features, and building practical projects to solidify your understanding. This is just the first part of a comprehensive series, so stay tuned for more in-depth lessons and exciting challenges. So let's get started on this learning journey together. So guys, when we develop a website, we have to consider two sides, the front end or the client side and the back end or the server side. The front end loads inside the browser and the server side will load inside the server, right? So the end user will see only this front end side of our website inside the browser. So guys, in a website, the front end will handle the user interaction and the back end or the server side will handle all the data response. We build the front end traditionally using HTML, CSS and JavaScript. Hope you guys already know about this. So guys, we use HTML to build the structure of our web page and use CSS to make our web page or the website user friendly by adding colors, fonts, layouts and so on. So using JavaScript, we make our website functional. Think this is something like the human body, the barebone or the skeleton structure of a human body is similar to our web page HTML structure. The CSS is something like our skin and or our dresses, and JavaScript is like our brain. So in our body, the main command center is the brain, right? So like that, we handle our website commands and the user experience using the JavaScript. For example, if we want to show an alert when the user clicks on a button, we use this JavaScript. If the user wants to change the color of the website by clicking a button, so we can also do this by using JavaScript. So guys, in JavaScript, we call this DOM manipulation. So the DOM stands for Document Object Module inside of the web browser. So hope you guys know about this. If any of you guys don't know about JavaScript, you guys can learn about JavaScript with my JavaScript full course. You can find the links in the description. Alright, so guys, manipulating this DOM using the JavaScript is not an easy task. It's very buggy and time consuming. So as a solution for this, big companies like Google and Meta, formerly we call this Facebook, right? So came up with their own solutions for this. So Google developed and introduced Angular and Meta developed and introduced React. So guys, the biggest question is, what is this Angular? So guys, Angular is a front-end library built using JavaScript, developed and maintained by Google. So guys, please carefully note this. Angular is not something new. It is built using JavaScript, not any something new programming language, right? So the main objective behind this Angular framework is to speed up and improve the developer experience. So guys, when we're developing an Angular app, basically we used the same approach, HTML, CSS and JavaScript with a little bit of syntax changes. The only thing is we don't need to write all the JavaScript codes from scratch. Angular framework has pre-built method and techniques for this. If you guys are familiar with CSS frameworks like Tailwind CSS or Bootstrap CSS, and we have to make a text color to something red, by using these CSS frameworks, we can make this text red by just simply adding the text color red utility class to our HTML element. So we don't need to write the CSS codes from scratch. So Angular also the same like this. For example, think if you want to show something dynamically, load the username inside of this h1 tag. In pure JavaScript, first we have to give an ID to this h1 tag. Then we have to capture the h1 tag using the get element by id method, right? So after this, we have to insert the username inside the h1 tag using inner HTML JavaScript method. But guys, in Angular, we can simply load this username value inside the h1 tag, something like this. Inside of two curly brackets, we can simply access this variable, and this will render this username inside the browser view. So we don't need to write lines of codes like pure JavaScript. So this is what I was trying to tell you guys. Angular is a JavaScript front-end framework that is used to develop web applications more robustly. So hope you guys got the idea. So guys, what is this SPA? This SPA stands for Single Page Application. A single page application is an app that doesn't need to reload the page during its use and works within a browser. Think of the apps we use daily: Facebook, Google Maps, Gmail, Twitter, Google Drive, or even GitHub. All these are examples of SPA applications. Let me show you an example. Go to the gmail.com. After you log in to your Gmail account, you can see your inbox and click one of your emails. If you look at this carefully, you can see this will open. You can see this will open the email without refreshing the page. This is what single page application. So what is going on here? So guys, most of the resources of a SPA application needs like HTML, CSS scripts are loaded at the launch of the app and don't need to be reloaded during the usage. The only thing that can change is the data that is transmitted to and from the server. As a result, the application is very responsive to the user's queries and doesn't have to wait for client-server communication all the time. One of the best advantage of SPA is the user experience and the speed. The user enjoys the natural environment of the app without having to wait for the page to reload and other things. You remain on the same page, which is powered by JavaScript programming language. So we can build or develop SPAs with most of the modern JavaScript front-end frameworks, including Angular. So guys, we can identify Angular apps as a SPA or single page applications. The Angular CLI is a command line interface tool that is used to initialize, develop, scaffold, and maintain Angular applications directly from a command shell. In other words, if you can remember, I told you that Angular is a JavaScript framework. This framework has default pre-built files. So in order to work with Angular, we need those files and techniques. With the help of this Angular CLI, we can create an Angular new application without any problem with a single line of command. Not only that guys, but browser also doesn't know Angular. So at the end of the day, we have to compile Angular to JavaScript, or we have to build an Angular app to production. So we can build the Angular app using the Angular CLI. Likewise, we can update, maintain, scaffold, develop an Angular app using this Angular CLI. So hope you guys got the idea. So guys, in order to use Angular CLI, first we have to install Angular CLI globally on our computer. To install Angular CLI, we need Node Package Manager. So the Node Package Manager bundled with the Node.js. So go to the Node.js org and simply download and install this recommended version of the Node.js. So after this installed, we can install the Angular CLI. So all we have to do is just run this command inside your command prompt or the terminal. So the command is npm install -g at angular/cli. If you're on a Mac, add sudo beginning of this command. Otherwise, you guys may get security permission errors. So PC users don't need to modify anything, just simply run this command. So this command will install Angular CLI on our computer globally. This G flag stands for global. Okay, this npm is the node package manager, and this is the installing package name Angular CLI. So hit enter to execute this command. Alright guys, we have installed Angular CLI on our computer. Now we can use the Angular CLI commands to work with Angular framework. Perfect. Alright, now we have installed the Angular CLI. So now we can generate a new Angular app using the Angular CLI. So guys, before we begin, in order to generate our new Angular application, we need a project folder. So for this course, I will create my project folder inside my computer desktop. So it will be easy for me to demonstrate this process. So guys, this is not mandatory to create the project folder always inside the desktop. You guys can create this wherever you guys want when you're working with real world Angular projects. For this course only, please follow these steps exactly same as mine. So you guys also create your project folder inside the desktop so we can prevent unnecessary bugs and errors. Okay, inside my desktop I created this folder and named it Angular full course. Now inside this we'll generate our Angular application. So let's restart the previous command prompt. Now inside this we can run the Angular CLI command. Before we run the Angular CLI command, first thing first we have to navigate our command prompt path to our project folder. So for this we can use the cd command. So inside this, first navigate to the desktop. So cd and desktop, hit enter. Now we are inside the desktop. So after this again cd, and the project folder name is Angular full course. Hit enter. Now as you guys can see here, we are inside our project folder. Awesome, right? So now let's generate our first Angular project. So guys, in order to generate new Angular project, we have to use the Angular CLI. So the Angular CLI command is ng. And in order to generate a new Angular app, we have to use the new command. So ng new. After this, we have to pass the project name, something first Angular app. Guys, keep this in your mind when we naming our Angular projects. Don't use spaces between project name words, right? So something like this, first space Angular space app. As a good practice, instead of space, use dashes, or we can use the camel case naming convention. Something like this. First letter is lowercase and each other words start with uppercase letters. First with lowercase f, and after this second word Angular with uppercase A, and the app with uppercase A. So between these words, no spaces. Okay. I prefer usually the slash method. So I remove this and the project name is first dash Angular dash app. So you guys can either use the camel case naming or the dash naming method. But once again, keep this in your mind. Don't use spaces. Alright, so this is the command for creating a new Angular app using the Angular CLI. So after this, hit enter to execute this command. Now as you guys can see here, the Angular CLI is asking that with our Angular project, which method of CSS are we going to use? The raw CSS or CSS preprocessors like SCSS, SAS or less. So guys, in our case, we will use the CSS throughout of this course. So select the first option, CSS, and hit enter. By the way guys, you guys can navigate throughout this using the arrow up and down keys, right? So now we have another option to enable the server-side rendering or the SSR in our Angular project. So guys, this is our first Angular project. In this section, we are not focusing on the SSR or the server-side rendering. So simply give no to this. I know guys, this SSR is maybe something new to you. Don't worry about that. In later sections, we will cover up A to Z about this in detail. So give no to this. Just type N and hit enter. Now guys, this will generate our new Angular app by downloading all the required files and dependencies. This may take several seconds to minutes depending on your PC or the internet speed. Alright guys, we successfully generated our first Angular app. So now inside the project folder, we can see our first Angular project. Inside this folder, we can see these folders and files. So guys, don't worry about these files and folders. I'll be going through each and every folder and file in detail in the later section. So in this lecture, let's see how to run our Angular app and reload inside the browser. So guys, let's open this inside our code editor, which is VS Code. So we can open this, right click on the Angular project folder and select this option, open with VS Code. Or we can open the VS Code first and we can open the project by navigating through the VS Code menu options. So once we open this inside the VS Code, we can see all our Angular files and folders inside this VS Code file tree. We'll come back to this in a later section. Now let's see how to compile this Angular project and open this inside the web browser. For this also guys, we can use the Angular CLI command. So how do we do that? So Angular CLI is a command line tool, right? So in order to run the Angular CLI command, we need a command prompt. So like the previous that we run the engineer command, right? So like that we can use the command prompt. So for this, as usual, first we have to navigate to the project folder, cd desktop, cd Angular full course, then again in order to run the CLI command, we have to navigate inside our Angular project as well. So after this, we can run the app from this path. But guys, this is a bit annoying, right? For this, we have a simple solution. We can use the VS Code's integrated terminal. So what is this integrated terminal? Guys, this is not something new. This is also the same default command prompt in our computer. But with this, we directly open our command prompt inside our project folder. So no need to navigate to the project path from the beginning. So let's see this in action. We can open the integrated terminal by going to the View menu and selecting this terminal option. The shortcode for this is this control or the command key with the tilde symbol. So click on this terminal option and this will open the integrated terminal, bottom of the VS Code. So guys, I am using Windows. So by default, this open the PowerShell, but this PowerShell will not work with ng or the Angular CLI commands. So I change this to Windows command prompt. We can change this by clicking this drop down and select the command prompt. This will open a new command prompt. So now I don't need the PowerShell, so I can delete this by clicking this trash icon. Perfect. So now we have successfully opened the VS Code integrated terminal. Next, let's run our Angular app. For this, as I said previous, we can use the Angular CLI. So inside this terminal, run the Angular CLI command. So what is the Angular CLI command for this? Yes, of course, it's ng. Now, in order to run the application, we have the serve command in Angular CLI. So if you can remember, we used the new command to generate the new Angular app. So likewise, we can use the serve command to run our Angular application. So after this, ng type serve. Hit enter to execute this command. So guys, this will compile our Angular app and run our Angular app on a local development server. At the initial run, this may take a bit long. Wait until this finish. Once it has done, down here you can see this local development server URL, localhost 4200. By default, Angular application will run on this 4200 port. Okay. Now we can access our Angular application by visiting to this URL. So copy this and paste this inside the browser. So guys, throughout this course, I will be using Google Chrome as my default browser. So you guys also use Google Chrome to follow this course. So this will minimize unnecessary bugs and errors. Alright, so inside the Google Chrome's address bar, I paste the Angular development server URL localhost colon 4200 and hit enter. This will load the application. As you guys can see here, this loaded the Angular default boilerplate design. So guys, this is the default view of our Angular project. Perfect, right? So guys, this is how we run Angular applications. So guys, in the previous lecture, we successfully ran and loaded our Angular application inside our web browser, which is Google Chrome, right? So guys, some of you may wonder why we have to run our Angular app using the Angular CLI. So guys, when we learned what is Angular, I told you guys that Angular is a front-end framework built using JavaScript, right? So this is not new. Most of the time, we'll write all the logics in JavaScript, but Angular has some of its own unique syntaxes for manipulating the DOM. For example, let's look at the same example that we used before. So let's see this. So guys, for this I have created a separate project folder called JavaScript example, and inside this I have created an index.html file. So let's use this for our JavaScript example. I already opened this inside of another VS Code window. So now let's focus on the example. I created an h1 tag inside the body, and so in JavaScript, if I want to load text inside of an h1 tag dynamically, first thing first, I have to define an ID for this h1 tag, right? So after that, I have to capture this using the JavaScript document module. Inside of the script scope, document.getElementById and assign this to a variable something title. So now after that, we have to append the text that we want to show inside the h1 tag using the JavaScript append method, right? So guys, I am moving a little fast on these pure JavaScript codes because I hope you guys all have a basic knowledge of JavaScript, and explaining JavaScript code from basic is not the scope of this course. So in any case, any of you guys don't understand this, just leave it. I'm just using this JavaScript code only in this lecture to explain how Angular works behind the scenes. Alright, so now let's open this inside the browser. Very simple. Go to the project folder and double click on this. This will open this index.html file inside our default browser directly. In here, we can see our h1 text loaded using JavaScript. Guys, this is the traditional way of doing this using vanilla JavaScript. But in Angular, we can do this something like this. So let's write this code in our Angular project. Guys, just look at this code. I'm just going to explain how Angular codes work behind the scenes. You don't need to follow the code or understand these codes. Okay, we will learn how to do this all in Angular in later sections. This is just for the example. Okay. Alright, so inside the app component TS file, we got our boilerplate code. For now, I removed all the code, and inside this, I created our h1 tag. Now what I want to do is, I want to load this heading tags text dynamically. So inside the app component TS file, I create the variable something called title, and I assign the text, something this dynamic title. Now I want to load this title variable inside the view. For this, we do something like this. Inside the h1, we use two curly brackets. We can pass the variable name that we want to show inside the view. Now, between these, we can pass the variable name that we want to show inside the view. So as you guys can see here, we can see our h1 text inside the browser. So guys, the question is how this loaded inside the view. When we use JavaScript, the browser knows JavaScript codes. So the browser will automatically compile the JavaScript code and load the view inside the browser. In a vanilla JavaScript project, we will not run any extra command line code to execute the JavaScript code inside the browser, and we just simply open the HTML file inside the browser directly, right? Because the browser only understands HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Browser doesn't know about Angular codes. So therefore, first thing first, we have to convert the Angular codes into browser-friendly JavaScript code. For example, in here we use something shorter version of special Angular syntax to load the text inside the h1 tag. So this is the Angular syntax. In order to run this inside the browser, we have to convert this code into a JavaScript code. This is what the ngserve does. When we run the ngserve Angular CLI command, Angular compiler will convert not only this one syntax, but the entire Angular project into a browser-friendly HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So that's why we need an extra step to load an Angular app inside of a browser. So some of you guys may wonder, if we again convert this Angular code into a JavaScript code, what is the use of Angular other than writing vanilla JavaScript? Guys, not only Angular, but all other front-end frameworks have also been developed to speed up the development process of a web application. Think if we write this using only vanilla JavaScript, we have to write several lines of codes. But in Angular, we did this within this simple Angular syntax. This just only a simple example. Guys, no words to say how Angular and other front-end frameworks improved the developer experience. While you guys following this course, you guys will understand the use of this Angular framework. Hope you guys got the idea. Perfect. Let's move on to the next chapter. Alright, in this lecture, let's look at our Angular project's file structure. When we learning Angular, it's important to know what are these files inside of an Angular project and what is use of these files. So let's go through this file structure one by one. As you guys can see here, inside the file tree, we can see a few folders and files. So first we can see this .angular folder. So guys, what is this? This is the folder where an Angular stores or cache the Angular project compiled data. As you guys know, in order to run this Angular project, we have to build or compile using the ngserve command. So when we run this app first time or in the initial stage, this will automatically create this .angular folder and store basic information, file paths, and required metadata details inside of JSON files. So after that, Angular compiler speed up the build-up process by using these cache files. This is the simple use case of this .angular folder. Guys, we don't need to worry about this folder because we will not touch this folder. This folder is only used by Angular compiler. Wait, let's see what will happen if I delete this folder and serve the Angular application again. As you guys can see here, this automatically created this folder again. So this is what I was trying to tell you. This file is created and used by the Angular compiler. Alright, let's move on to the next folder. We have the .vs Code folder, which is this also like the .angular folder. This folder is nothing about Angular. This is created by VS Code, our code editor, by default to store the necessary VS Code configurations for this particular Angular project. So next we got the node modules folder. Guys, this is not like the other folders. This folder is very important. The total Angular ecosystem is stored under this folder. So in simple, all the required dependencies and all the Angular frameworks files are stored inside this folder. So if I expand this, inside this, as you guys can see here, we have so many folders and files. These all files are required by the Angular framework. So without these files, Angular will not work. Wait, I'll show you this. I just simply delete this folder. As you guys can see here, once the delete process is completed, we got some compile errors inside the terminal. And also inside the browser, our app broke or crashed. If I try to reserve our Angular project, as you guys can see here, we get some compile errors stating that there are missing files. So this is what I try to explain to you guys. In order to work with Angular, we need this folder. But guys, we will not touch this folder as well. This folder will be totally maintained by our Angular framework. You don't need to touch this folder. Okay, hope you guys got the idea. Alright, next we got the src folder. I'll skip this for now and we'll come back to this in a minute because this is another very important folder in Angular, right? So next down here we have some files. Let's go through these files one by one. The first file that we can see here, the editor config file. This file also contains configuration details about the code editor. This file is also not very important. Next we have the .gitignore file. This file is basically dealing with the Git version control. This file specifies that which files or folders should ignore when we're dealing with version controls. So don't worry about this. We have a dedicated section about this Git version control. In that section, you guys will get used to this. Okay, next we have the angular.json file. Guys, this is the heart of an Angular project. This file contains and controls all the dependencies structure of our Angular application. And also this contains how to compile our application and more details. This is like the brain of our Angular application. This file is very important. As you guys can see here, this contains the index file of our Angular app. As you guys can see here, this contains all the details about our Angular application. We have to upload the compiled Angular files, where is our assets, what is our style sheet, and Angular configurations details and more. So guys, as I said, without this file, Angular is like a living dead man, like a zombie. So therefore, this file is very important. Also guys, we will not touch this file as well. We will not modify or remove anything inside this file. Otherwise, this will lead us to unnecessary problems and bugs. Hope you guys got the idea. Alright, so let's move on to the next file. Next down here, we got this package.json file and package.json file. Guys, this contains all the dependencies and packages that are required for our Angular project. First, let's look at the package.json file. As you guys can see here, this has a few JSON objects. At the top, we have some meta details about our Angular application and our application name. If you guys remember, we named our Angular project name as this when we're generating our Angular application using the Angular CLI, right? So next down here, we have the version number and we got the script details. Actually, what is this? Nothing much guys. If you guys can remember, we use the ngserve command to run our Angular application. So this ngserve command is defined here. So guys, not only the ng command, we can simply use the start command also to run our Angular application. So let's see this in action. So guys, for the Angular CLI, we use the ng command, but for this package JSON script, we have to use the node package manager. So inside the terminal, run this command npm. So this command is for the node package manager, right? So the script is this start. Now hit enter. As you guys can see here, we are getting some compile errors. Why are we getting this? If you guys can remember, in the previous lecture, we deleted the node modules folder. That's why we are getting these errors. For now, just simply ignore these errors. We'll come back to this in a minute. So as you guys can see here, when this npm start command executing, this will look inside the package.json file, start script, and execute the start script value, which is the ngserve command. So if I change the command to something test, again, let's execute this npm start. As you guys can see here, this time this executed the test command that we defined here. So this test is not a valid command, so that's why we are getting this error. Hope you guys got the idea. So like this, the all of other commands also same as this. When we develop an Angular application, either we can use the ng commands or we can simply use the npm or this package JSON commands. But even if we run these npm commands, but in the end, this is running the same ng or the Angular CLI commands. So hope you guys got the idea. Alright, next we can see the dependencies JSON object and this dev dependencies JSON object. So guys, this is the total collection of dependencies that we need for this Angular project. As you guys know, I deleted the node modules folder in the previous lecture. Now we cannot start our Angular application. So in order to fix this, we can reinstall or download the full node modules folder again. So by using this dependencies object, we can re-download all the required dependencies for this Angular project, right? So for this simply we have npm command npm install. So inside the terminal, let's run this command npm install. So we can use the short form of this npm I. So this command will look, this I stand for install. So guys, this command will look inside the dependencies object and this dev dependencies object, re-download all the required packages inside the node modules folder. Once this is completed, as you guys can see here, we get the node modules folder and inside that we get all the Angular required dependencies like previous. If I run our Angular application again using the Angular CLI command ng serve, as you guys can see here, this time our Angular project compiled and run without any problems. So guys, these dependencies, JSON objects are very important. So we will not touch or modify these dependencies objects. Even if we lose one of these, our Angular application will not work. Hope you guys got the idea. Alright, let's move on. Next we have the readme.md file, which is just a readme file that includes some dev information about our Angular project. Next we got these tscript configuration files, tsconfig app.json, tsconfig.json and tsconfig-spec.json file. So guys, Angular is a JavaScript framework, right? But when we deal with Angular, we will write TypeScript codes because Angular is based on TypeScript. By default, Angular is using TypeScript, right? So those who don't know about TypeScript, it's a superset of JavaScript, basically TypeScript also same as JavaScript, but TypeScript has some additional features that are not coming with JavaScript. Okay, so we have a dedicated section about TypeScript. You guys will learn A to Z about TypeScript in that section. So guys, as I said, these all contain the configuration details of TypeScript. Alright, so that's it. We covered all the files and now let's move on to the heart of an Angular project, which is this src folder. Alright guys, now let's go through the source folder or the src folder. So guys, this is the heart of an Angular folder. We will spend time inside this folder throughout this course and we will mostly work inside this folder, right? Inside this we can see these two folders and few files. First let's look at these files. First one is this favicon icon. This is the main icon image of our Angular website, right? So next we have the index.html file. This is the main index file of our Angular application. This is the file which loads inside the browser. Next we have the main.ts file. This is the main TypeScript file which renders the app component file inside the browser view, right? So guys, just simply get an idea about these files. In the next section, we will learn in detail about these files. So next we have our global CSS file, styles.css file. We will write all the global CSS styles of our Angular application inside this file. Next, let's look at this assets folder. This is basically stores the media files such as images, external JavaScript files, videos, and so on. Next, the app folder. This is the main component folder of our Angular project. We will store all of our Angular project component files, service files, module files inside this app component. So guys, inside of this src folder also, we will not touch most of these files. We will only work within this app folder. So inside this, by default, we have few files. So guys, Angular is a component-based front-end framework. By default, we have our main entry component, which is this app component, right? So basically, Angular component has three major files and an optional file, which are the HTML file, CSS file, and the TypeScript file. The optional file is this component.spec.ts file. This is for the unit testing. So this is the main component which renders our view inside the browser. We will deep dive into this when we learning Angular components. Alright, so next we have the appconfig.ts file. Basically, we use this to configure Angular modules. And next we have the approutes.ts file. This is the file where we define all our Angular routers. Don't worry about these technical terms and words. While you follow this Angular course, you will get used to this. Okay. So guys, I think that's the end of the all files inside of this Angular project. So guys, some of you guys may not get the overall picture of an Angular project file structure. Don't worry about that. You guys will get used to this. Alright, so let's move on to the next chapter.